So in this video, we're going over the review for the Mach 5. So the first question says identify the two values for which the expression is undefined. And to do that, we are going to set the denominator. We're going to factor the denominator and then set those factors equal to 0. So I'm going to factor out a 2 first because I notice that all of these have a GCF of 2. That's going to give me x squared minus 8x plus 12. And then I'm thinking through what are the factors of 12 that add up to be negative 8, and that would be x minus 6 and x minus 2. And remember, we're going to set these equal to 0. That's going to be our next step, right? So we're going to do x minus 6 equals 0. So x equals 6, or x cannot equal 6, right? And then x minus 2 equals 0. So x cannot equal 2. So those are our two values, 6 and 2. The next one says, what is the domain for the function f of x is equal to x plus 12 over x minus, over 8 minus x. Domain means x values, okay? So that's important for you guys to know, so you must know that first. And then it says domain, so domain has to do with, again, the values for which the expression is undefined, okay? So we're going to actually take this again and set it equal to 0. So this is 8 minus x equals 0. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. That's going to be minus x equals minus 8. And then we can either divide or multiply by negative 1. Right? So that's going to be x equals 8. So x cannot equal 8. So this would be all real numbers except for what value? Yes, 8. Okay? So that's what domain is. The x values for which the function is true. Or in this case, not true. All right, number 3, I'm going to split this up to our coefficients and then our x's. So we got 17 times 10 over 6 times 19. And then we've got our x to the 2 plus 5. And remember, anything that's down here is minus, right? Minus 3. So I see some reduction that I can do here. So I can do this, right? That's both divisible by what? 2, right? So that's 5 and that's 3. Then we're going to just multiply 17 times 5, which is 85. And 3 times 19, which is 57. Now those can't be reduced anymore, right? And then we've got 7 minus 3, which is x to the 4th. So that's going to go on top, remember, because it's positive. All right, so number 4 is a simplifying problem. Okay, so what we're going to do is factor this thing. So I noticed that it's got a 16x squared in both terms. That leaves me with an x plus 3. Then we're going to factor the denominator as well, and that's going to be x plus 3 and x minus 3, right? So now all we have to do is cancel out the factors that are repeated in both the numerator and the denominator, and that would be those two, which leaves us with 16x squared over x minus 3. So that would have been C. All right, number 5 says simplify. So in this one, which is just multiplication. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to rewrite the problem, but we're going to go ahead and factor this numerator up here. So we have an m and an m, and again, we're asking ourselves, what are the factors of 24 that add up to be negative 10? So that would be minus 4 and minus 6, right? And then we got this m plus 2. Then again, remember, if we are multiplying, we're multiplying across the top and across the bottom, so now we can just start canceling things out. So this goes away. So the only thing we're left with is m minus 6 over m minus 2, or m plus 2, sorry. Okay, so now number 6, we're going to, again, factor. So I notice that there's a GCF up here of 3. Okay, so we got this 3, and we're going to factor that out of the 21n squared, so that's going to give us 7n squared. Factor it out of the 33n, that's going to give us 11n. Factor it out of the 12, that's going to give us a 4, right? Then down here, again, we got another GCF of 3, so factor that out of the 3n squared, that's n squared minus 5n minus 6, okay? Then we got over here this 36 and this 7n plus 4, okay? So now we can factor the numerator more and the denominator more. So let's go ahead and do that. So remember, we're going to do a 7n here and a 7n here. And we're looking at what are the factors of 28 that add up to be 11. So that's going to be plus 7 and plus 4, right? Okay, now remember, this can be reduced, right? So this is going to be 3 and n plus 1 times 7n plus 4, okay? That's our numerator. Down here, we're going to go ahead to our denominator now. So again, we're asking ourselves, what are the factors of negative 6 right here that add up to be negative 5? So we got another n and an n, right? So that's going to be, isn't that going to be minus 6 and plus 1? I think so. So now we're going to cross out, let's go ahead and do this. 36 over here and the 7n plus 4. So now we can cross out what's repeated in the numerator and denominator. So we have a 3 and a 3. We have an n plus 1 and n plus 1. We have a 7n plus 4 and a 7n plus 4. So what's left on top is our 36, and what's left on bottom is our n minus 6. So our answer is going to be 36 over n minus 6. So that was A, right? Okay. All right, so now we're going to simplify. So remember, with division, we're going to keep, change, flip, right? And then I always like to put another F because we're going to factor, right? So that I'm going to go ahead and write this down here. So I'm going to factor out that 5. So that's going to give me x minus 1. And I'm going to factor out a 5 down here. And that's going to give me, you know what, actually, take that back. Well, this is the problem we decided we weren't going to do because it was written wrong, okay? So we're not going to do this problem. We're just going to do the keep, change, flip on the number 8. Okay, so we're going to keep the numerator. And I'm going to go ahead and factor this, right? So that's going to be A. And what are the factors of negative 5 that add up to be 4? That would be plus 5 and minus 1, right? Then we're going to change this to multiplication. We're going to put our 7 on the bottom, and we're going to factor that 7 out. That's going to give us A plus 5 again, okay? So now we're just looking to see what we can cancel out, right? So we can cancel out these 7s, and we can cancel out this A plus 5 because it's repeated in the numerator and the denominator. So our answer for number 8 is going to be 5A over A minus 1. All right, number 9. So on this one, we got to get a common denominator, okay? So I noticed that this would be 4 times r plus 1, and this would be 5 times r minus 1. So I don't see any repeated factor here, okay? So because of that, I'm just going to multiply both of them by the denominator of the other one. So this is going to be 3r over 4r plus 4, and I'm going to multiply this by the 5r minus 5. 5r minus 5, right? Okay. Then I'm going to add to that my 5r plus 6 over 5r minus 5. And I'm going to multiply it by the denominator of the other one, okay? So this one over here. So we're going to do 4r plus 4 over 4r plus 4. Now listen, once we have a common denominator, look right here. We have a common denominator. This and this are the same thing. Once we have that, then we can just work with the top, okay? And we're going to put it all over that common denominator. So our common denominator is going to be 4r plus 4 times 5r minus 5. And now we're just going to multiply across the top, right? So 3r times 5r is 15r squared. 3r times negative 5 is negative 15r. Then we're going to get 4 terms over here on the right, okay, because we're multiplying a binomial times a binomial, okay? So 5r times 4r is going to be plus 20r squared. Then we've got 5r times the 4, that's going to be plus 20r. Then we've got this, which is going to be plus 24r. And then we've got this, plus 24, okay? So now we're just looking for our like terms, okay? So notice here we have a 15r squared and a 20r squared. So that's going to give us 35r squared. Then we've got a 15r, a negative 15r, a 20r, and a 24r. So if we combine all of those, that would be, what is that, 44 minus 15, which I got, where's my problem at? 29r. Okay, and then we just have this constant right here. Y'all see it? Plus 24. So that's all going to be over our common denominator, which was 4r plus 4 times 5r minus 5. Okay? And that answer is as good as it gets. Okay? So number 10, again, we're going to see if we can create a factor here, a common denominator, right? So let's see if we can factor out a 7v, and if we do that, we get v plus 3. Ooh, lovely. Plus 8 over v plus 3. Now what we want to get, remember, is the same thing that's here over here. So we're going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by that 7v, because that's what we don't have in our denominator right now. So when we do that, now that we have our common denominator, we can go ahead and put that 7v times v plus 3. And then on top, we're going to get our 3v, and we're going to multiply the 8 times the 7v, right? So that's going to be 56v. So when we do that, we get 59v over, again, 7v times v plus 3. Okay? There we go. All right, number 11. Again, we're going to try to get a common denominator here because we're subtracting. Okay, guys? So when we're adding, subtracting, we've got to get a common denominator. So we got our negative 10. We're going to go ahead and factor this. X plus 7, x minus 7. And then we're going to subtract from that x over x minus 7. So once again, let's talk about this. What do you notice? Over here, we got an x plus 7 and an x minus 7. Over here, we only have an x minus 7. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this by the x plus 7 over the x plus 7. Okay? Now we have our common denominator, so I can write it x plus 7 times x minus 7, and then we're just trying to work on the top. So we get negative 10 minus, remember, be very careful here, y'all. We're going to subtract the negative x times x. So that's going to be minus x squared, and then a negative x times 7, so that's going to be minus 7x, okay? So if we wrote this in descending order, it would be negative x squared minus 7x minus 10 over our factors, x plus 7, x minus 7. So which of those do you guys see that it matches? Letter D. It is indeed. Okay. So number 12, same thing. So we got our 5 over, I'm going to factor out that 3. And so I get 3r plus 1. Well, that's not going to really help me. Y'all notice that? So because of that, I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm just going to keep it the 9r. So I'm just going to scratch through that. And I'm going to say 5 over, actually I'm going to erase it because I didn't need it. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this 9r plus 3 minus 6 over 4r, right? So now I'm just going to multiply by the opposite ones. Y'all see that? So I'm going to multiply this by 4r over 4r. And this one by the 9r plus 3 over the 9r plus 3. Okay? So this is going to give us 20r over our common denominator minus, again, watch this, guys, this negative 6 times, so that's going to be minus 54r, right? And then minus 6, so that's going to be minus 18 times 3, okay? So this is all over our 4r times 9r plus 3, right? So do you see any common factors or common terms up there? Yeah, right there. I do too. So what's that going to give us? Negative 34r minus 18 over, again, our 4r times 9r plus 3. And that was, again, D. All right, this next one says solve and state extraneous solutions, right? Okay, so the first thing we're always going to do, remember, first steps here, factor and then cancel anything you can, okay? So we've got x plus 6 up here and x minus 6, because we're going to factor it, over our x plus 6 equals 5. So here again, we've got an x plus 6 and x plus 6, so we're just left with x minus 6 equals 5. We're going to add that 6 to both sides. So x equals 11. And the only excluded value would be this. X plus 6 equals 0. So x cannot equal 6 and x does not equal 6. It equals 11. And remember, you can plug that back in to check it. So that would be 121 minus 36 over, What is that? 17? And I guess that's going to give you 5. So double check it. All right, so on this one, I'm going to go ahead and factor this. I have a suspicion that the factors of -4 that add up to be 3 are going to be +4. Let me make that a little bigger. X plus 4 and x minus 1, which is what we see over here, right? So what we're going to do to get our common denominator is we're going to multiply this one over here by the other one. X plus 4 over x plus 4. Then we're going to add to that our 5x over x plus 4. And this one we're going to multiply by the other one, the x minus 1. Okay? And that's going to be equal to -21x over, again, our factors, x plus 4, x minus 1. Now we have a common denominator. Once we have this common denominator, y'all, we don't have to think about it anymore to solve for our x. All we have to do is work this. So x times 3 is 3x. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 5x times x is 5x squared. And 5x times -1 is -5x. And that's equal to -21x. So now what we're going to do is just simplify this, right? So I'm going to write my 5x squared because I don't have another x squared. We do have a 3x and a -5x. That's going to be minus 2x plus 12 equals -21x. So we're going to add that 21x to both sides. So that's going to give us 5x squared plus 19x plus 12 equals 0. Okay, remember, to get our number that we're going to work with here, we're going to multiply a times c. So that's going to give us 60. So we're going to drop this 5x down into our set of parentheses here. This is the part you guys might not remember. And we're going to think about what are the factors of 60 that add up to be 19. That would be plus 15 and plus 4. Okay, so now that can be divided by 5. So this is going to be x plus 3. That's one of our factors. And the other one's going to be 5x plus 4. Remember, we are going to set both of these factors equal to 0. So this is going to be x equals -3. And this one's going to be, we're going to subtract the 4. So this is going to be 5x equals -4. We're going to divide both sides by 5. So x here is equal to -4/5. All right, so remember, our excluded values would be up here. These two factors right here, guys. So this one and this one. So that means x cannot equal 1 and x cannot equal -4. And neither one of those answers was those. So these are our correct answers. And again, remember, you can plug these back in to double check, okay? So let's see if I can move this stuff over a little bit and get us some extra room. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll see, guys. Yeah, maybe a little. Okay, so we're going to work this one over here. And I'm going to make a little line right here so I can differentiate it. So we've got our 3x plus 5, right? And that's over x plus 3 when I factor this, x minus 3, right? And then this is equal to 3 over x plus 3. So what do we have to do to get a common denominator? Yep, you got it. Add, multiply by x minus 3 over x minus 3. Now, again, we have this common denominator now. Same thing here and here. So all we have to do is the numerator. Okay, y'all see that right there? So that means we've got 3x plus 5 equals 3x minus 9. Wow, well, what happens when I subtract this 3x from both sides, guys? We get 5 equals -9. Is that a true statement? No. So this one has no solution. Okay? And I wouldn't be surprised if something like that didn't show up on the actual midterm, y'all. It would be, not surprising from the county if they did something like that. So, all right. So here's the next one. A student is told to sketch a graph of a polynomial function. Which statement is true about p of x? As x values approach negative infinity, that means we're going over here, negative infinity. What's happening to y, y'all? Where's it headed? To negative infinity, right? So it's saying true. That's definitely not true. The function has a degree of 3 because it has 3 zeros. Well, 1, 2, 3, it does have 3 zeros, but it doesn't have, it's not a third degree y because it's an even degree polynomial because it goes both directions. So that's not true either. The degree is even with a negative leading coefficient. Well, yes, it's even y because both ends head down and it's negative leading coefficient. That's what tells us it goes down. So the answer is actually C. Let's just check D for the sake of time. As values approach positive infinity, that would be over here, right? This is still heading towards negative infinity, isn't it, y'all? So that would be wrong as well. All right, so number 17 says, given the polynomial f of x equals 8x squared plus 27x minus 20, which of the following binomial expressions represents a factor? So there's a couple ways we could do this, guys. We could actually just factor this thing. Or we could divide it by each of these, right? So I'm trying to see. I'm going to just try to factor it because on this particular problem, we could do that, right? Or, okay, here's another thing you guys could do is you could use synthetic division, right? So you could do 8, negative 27, and negative 20. Divide that by negative 8. That would be, and if we get a remainder of 0, that's how we know it's actually the answer, right? So that would be negative 64. I can tell you right now, this one's not going to be it. So that's 90, negative 91. Oh yeah, that's going to be some big number. So that's definitely not it, y'all. Let's try the 4. So negative 8, and okay, so we got 8, negative 27, negative 20, right? So we bring down this. That's 8. That's going to be, so what am I doing? It's supposed to be 4, y'all. My bad. Positive 4, right, y'all? Okay, that's going to be 32. And that's going to be 5. And guess what? 5 times 4 is 20. And that's a remainder of 0. So that was our answer right there because we got a remainder of 0. Okay, that's the remainder theorem, right? That's what helps us solve this, okay? Number 18 says, a student claims that for some polynomial p of x, the rational expression p of x divided by 2x minus 4 can be expressed as q of x plus 5 over. Okay, we are going to change this to 11, y'all, okay? Because there is no answer there that has a remainder of 5, okay? Where q of x is a polynomial. Select the polynomial that can be used to support the student's claims. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do this first one. And we got an 8 and a negative 12 and a 3. And we're going to divide. Oh, you know what? We can't use synthetic division, can we? No, we have to use long division because there's a 2 in front of that x. Y'all see that right there? So we're going to do 2x minus 4. We're going to divide it in here. 8x squared minus 12x plus 3. Okay, so what do we have to multiply by 2x to get 8x? That would be 4x, right, squared. So that's 8x squared. And then 4x, that's going to be minus 16x. Remember, we're going to change the signs of everything here because we're subtracting this. That gives us 4x plus 3, right? Then we're going to multiply that by 2, right? So that's going to give us 4x minus, what is that? Minus 8, right? Remembering again, we're going to change these signs. That's going to be minus, that's going to be plus. So there's our remainder of 11 right there. Whew, like it. The answer was A. All right, number 19. So this one says to simplify. So the first thing we have to do is find the conjugate. What is the conjugate, y'all? It's when we change the imaginary part of this problem only. So we're looking at this, okay? So it's going to be 4i over 5 plus I, and the conjugate of that is 5 minus I over 5 minus I. That's how we're going to use it. The conjugate is just the 5 minus I, y'all. But we're going to do the 5, we're going to multiply it by over itself. So that's going to be 20i minus 4i squared. And then remember, the shortcut here, y'all, is to square the 5 and to square the 1, right? So that's going to give us, and we're going to change this I squared to a negative 1. And what is negative 4 times negative 1? That's going to be 4 plus 20i over, that's going to be 26, right, y'all? So this is all going to reduce, isn't it, guys? It is. So this is going to end up being 2 plus 10 over 13 and 13, right? And that's I. So the answer to this one was A. I do believe. Yep. All right. This next one, I would just do this by using the box method, y'all, just to make sure I don't make an error. Okay. So you could use FOIL, you can use the distributive property, but I'm just going to use the box. This is going to be minus 60i minus 60i, and then this is going to be 36i squared, keeping in mind that this is going to change again to a -1, right? So that's going to be 100 minus 36, which is 64, right? If I could write, that would be great. And then we've got these like terms right here. Y'all see that? So that's going to be minus 120i. So there's your answer. All right, the next one says, what is the volume of a rectangular box with the height? Remember, volume is length times width times height, right? So it's got a height of 3x. It's got a width of x plus 4. And then it's got a length of what? X squared minus 2. So what I'm going to do first is this right here, because I can do that in my head. So that's going to give me 3x squared plus 12x. Then I'm going to actually multiply that using the box method by the other dimensions, okay? So here I'm going to get 3x to the 4th. That's going to be 12x to the 3rd. Negative 2 times 3x squared is going to be negative 6x squared, and then this is going to be negative 24x. Do y'all notice we don't have any like terms here that we can combine? So our answer is going to be 3x to the 4th plus 12x to the 3rd minus 6x squared minus 24x. That's our answer. All right, this one says solve. So remember, we're going to distribute this x to both terms. So that's going to be x squared minus 10x. Now we're going to also move this by adding 30 to both sides. Okay, so we want to ask ourselves, do we have any factors of 30 that add up to be 10? 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. Nope, none. Okay, so where this is going to be our A is 1, right? Our B is going to be negative 10, and our C is going to be our 30, right? Do y'all remember that? A, B, and C. And our quadratic formula is going to be, we're going to do B squared minus 4AC here, because we're going to find what kind of solution are we going to get, real or imaginary. Although I can already tell it's going to be imaginary, because all the answer choices are imaginary. So that means it's going to be negative 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 30. That's going to be 100 minus 120. That's going to be negative 20, right? So yes, that's going to be imaginary because there's negative underneath the radical. Because here's our quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of what we just did, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so we're going to plug this in now. So that's going to be minus a minus 10 plus or minus the square root of negative 20 over 2 times 1. Okay, so that's going to give us a positive 10 plus or minus, this would be the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4 times the square root of 5, right, all over 2. So let's simplify this again. 10 plus or minus, this is 2, this is I, that's the square root of 5 over 2. Now, can't this be simplified a little more, y'all? Yes, it can. So that's going to be equal to, because all of that's divisible by 2, right? So this can be 5 plus or minus I square root of 5. And if I'm not mistaken, that was A, wasn't it? Number 22, yep. Okay, so number 23, on this one, let me see if I can get that thing back up here. Okay, so we're going to move that 3, 16x squared equals negative 3 by subtracting it from both sides. We're going to divide both sides by 16. So that gets us x squared equals negative 3 over 16. And remember, when we take the square root of both sides, we're going to do plus or minus here. We can do it on the top and the bottom, right? So that's going to be x is equal to plus or minus. Now, isn't this the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 3, y'all? Yep, and that's going to be the square root of 16, which is 4. So when we continue simplifying this, remember, this bad boy right here is what? I, right? So it's going to be plus or minus I square root of 3 all over 4. All right, number 24 says, the given rectangle has a width represented by the function, and it gives us the width. If the length of the given rectangle is x less than and 5 inches greater than the width, what is the perimeter? So it's asking us for perimeter, and we need to know that perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, right? So we've got the width, so we can do 2 times the x squared plus 3x minus 4. But it's telling us that the length is x inches less. So we're gonna find length, okay? Length is equal to, and it's saying then the width. Okay, so we've got x squared plus 3x minus 4, okay? So it says it's x inches less, so it's minus x, and 5 inches greater. So we're going to do a plus 5, right? So that's going to give us x squared plus 2x plus 1, right? So now when we're trying to find our length, so our perimeter is going to be equal to 2 times that. So that's going to be x squared plus 2x plus 1. So now we're just going to distribute that 2. So this is going to be 2x squared plus 4x plus 2 plus 2x squared plus 6x minus 8. Now we just have to combine our like terms, right? So we got this and this that are the same, so that's going to be 4x squared. We have a 4x and a 6x, so that's going to be plus 10x. And then we have a 2 minus 8, that's going to be minus 6. So that is our perimeter right there, guys. Okay? So the last one says, given that f of x is 5x to the third minus 16x squared minus 20x plus 1, and that g of x is 2x squared plus 18x minus 7, find g of x minus f of x, okay? So it's saying g of x minus f of x. So we're going to do 2x to the third plus, I don't have an x to the first, I mean x to the second, so I'm going to put a 0 there, plus 18x minus 7. Then we're going to subtract from that our 5x to the third. I'm going to change every one of these signs, y'all. So I'm going to actually multiply all this by a negative 1. So that's going to make that minus, that plus, that plus, that minus, okay? So that's going to be plus 16x squared plus 20x minus 1. Okay? So that's going to give me minus 3x to the third plus 16x squared plus 38x minus 8. That's our answer.